the dream you don't know you're dreaming. Hook. You think you're living your life, but you're not. You're just avoiding your death. We open with a chilling realization. Every day we make choices not out of freedom, but out of fear. We chase goals, build identities, fall in love, start wars, buy homes, post on Instagram, all to distract ourselves from a truth too terrifying to face. We are going to die. This isn't a video about death. It's about the lie we create to alive. This lie is your job, your religion, your self-esteem, your Instagram bio. And the man who exposed this lie, Ernest Becker, won the Pulitzer Prize for writing what many called the most important book of the 20th century, The Denial of Death. What you're about to hear is not comforting. It won't give you hope. It might make you cry. But it will reveal something deeper than hope. The truth behind everything you believe. The worm at the core. How death shaped the human psyche. Unique opening approach. Start by narrating a true story. A man on the 110th floor of the World Trade Center on 9/11 who called his wife to say goodbye, not screaming, but softly, lovingly. Why does death bring out such calm clarity? This chapter introduces Becker's central thesis. Humans are the only animals aware of their mortality. This awareness is both a gift and a curse. Key quote: "The idea of death, the fear of it, haunts the human animal like nothing else." Ernest Becker, The Denial of Death, will explore the psychological consequences of this awareness and why it separates us from every other species on Earth. Introduction to Becker's theory of the vital lie. How childhood experiences shape our fear of death. Real-life examples of people facing mortality, terminal illness, suicide letters, 9/11 phone calls, evolutionary roots. Why natural selection made us fear death so deeply. The Immortality Project. Why everything you love is a lie. Unique opening. Ask the viewer, would you still chase your dreams if you knew you'd be forgotten in a generation? Here we analyze what Becker calls immortality projects, systems of meaning, religion, career, legacy, art, fame we use to transcend death. Key quote: "What man really fears is not so much extinction, but extinction with insignificance." We mean religion as a form of symbolic immortality, social status as a buffer against mortality. The paradox of narcissism. The more we deny death, the more self-important we become. Tragic examples, celebrities who reached fame and still ended their lives, e.g. Robin Williams, Anthony Bourdain. The hero's lie, how society replaces truth with glory. Unique opening. Begin with a montage of military funerals, Olympic gold medalists, Nobel Prize winners, martyrs. Becker argued that society offers us hero systems so we can feel like we matter in a meaningless universe. But this often leads to war, fanaticism, and destruction. Key quote: "Society is a codified hero system, a symbolic action that says, I mattered." How cultural myths, American dream, religious martyrdom promise, meaning through sacrifice. Examples, suicide bombers, cult members, soldiers, all driven by the promise of eternal significance. How Becker's theory applies to political polarization and tribalism today. The unbearable truth. Glory is just a denial of death wrapped in medals. The denial of death in love. Why we cling to others. Unique. Opening. Begin with a love letter, found in Auschwitz. Real, poetic, written by a dying man to his wife. Why, even in death, do we love? Becker wrote that many people replace religion with romantic love as their path to immortality. We don't just love our partners, we worship them, hoping they'll make us feel eternal. Key quote: "We elevate the partner into the God realm and then are devastated when they fail us." Covered here, Becker's concept of romantic projection. Why love makes us feel immortal. The collapse of love when we realize the other person is mortal too. Examples: codependent relationships, grief after loss, obsessive love as terror management. Freud and Becker, love as both salvation and prison. The scientific proof, Becker meets modern psychology, unique opening. Begin with a Stanford study where people were reminded of their death. They changed their political views, beliefs, and even how much they tipped waiters. Here we synthesize all previous chapters and validate Becker's theories through terror management theory (TMT), a major branch of psychological science built on Becker's work. We will cover the origin and key experiments of TMT, how reminders of death shape politics, consumer behavior, and even prejudice, neuroscience of death, denial brain's default mode network and fear centers, how to live authentically in the face of death, from awareness to transcendence. They found her phone on the sidewalk, screen cracked, still recording. She had fallen from the rooftop of a luxury apartment in Manhattan. 28 years old, PhD student, bright, talented, loved. Her last Instagram story was of a sunset, captioned, "Grateful for today." She jumped 10 minutes later, and no one knew why. Her friends said she was so full of life. Her parents said she had everything to live for. The therapist, off record, said she'd spent the last 6 months asking one question over and over. What's the point if I'm just going to die anyway? We don't talk about that question. We edit it out of our group chats. We wrap it in religion, drown it in work, numb it with dopamine, distract it with reels. But it's always there, beneath the shopping lists, behind the wedding plans, under the laughter at dinner parties. It hums like a hidden frequency. This is all temporary, and one day it will end. Death isn't something we face, it's something we run from. And the faster we run, the more decorated our lives become. Careers, children, fitness, status, spirituality, productivity, legacy. But what if all of that, the meaning you think you're building, is just a beautifully designed avoidance strategy? That's the terrifying brilliance of Ernest Becker. In 1973, while dying of cancer, he wrote a book that shredded the spiritual wallpaper off Western civilization. The Denial of Death won the Pulitzer Prize, not because it made people feel good, but because it exposed a truth so unsettling that most people still aren't ready to face it. The idea of death, the fear of it, haunts the human animal like nothing else. It is a mainspring of human activity, designed largely to avoid the fatality of death, to overcome it by denying it in some way. You aren't afraid of dying, you're afraid of knowing you're going to die. And so, like billions before you, you build a life that feels permanent, even though it isn't. It's not a conscious lie. It's worse than that. It's a necessary lie, because without it, you'd collapse. This video is about that lie. It's about how we've turned the denial of death into our most sacred religions, our deepest loves, our greatest wars, and our happiest Instagram captions. It's about the ways we pretend to be immortal, and how those pretenses shape every choice we make, from who we marry to who we vote for. It's about the dream you don't know you're dreaming, and it's time to wake up. The worm at the core. There's a moment, usually just after a funeral, or during a cancer diagnosis, or when you're scrolling at 2 a.m. and someone you went to school with has died suddenly, when something strange happens. The veil thins. You become aware that you're a body, not a dream, not a character, not a journey, a body, a soft, decaying, blood-filled sack of skin being slowly pulled toward non-existence. You blink, and the veil closes again. You eat, you answer emails, you laugh at memes, but it's still there. That moment, that glimpse, the one you work so hard to forget. The idea of death, the fear of it, haunts the human animal like nothing else. Ernest Becker. The Denial of Death Becker wasn't being poetic. He was being precise. Death isn't a footnote in the human story, it's the foundation of it. Everything we call human culture, art, politics, religion, architecture, love. War is a reaction to the unbearable awareness that we are going to die. We are the only species cursed with this knowledge. A squirrel doesn't reflect on the legacy of his nut storage. A lion doesn't mourn the ephemerality of the hunt. But we do, because we know, and we can't not know. This is the core paradox of human existence. We are gods trapped in animal bodies. We can write symphonies, build nations, imagine eternity, and yet we rot. We brush our teeth over skulls. We buy birthday cakes for people who will eventually die in pain. We decorate the edges of the abyss, and the mind unable to tolerate. This contradiction begins to split, so we lie. We tell ourselves that this isn't about death, that falling in love is about romance, not survival, that building a business is about purpose, not permanence, that parenting is about nurturing, not reproducing ourselves into the future like desperate clones. Man cannot endure his own littleness unless he can translate it into meaningfulness on the largest possible level. Becker, this need, this scream for significance, isn't vanity, it's anesthesia, and Becker's genius was to see that our greatest achievements as a species are not signs of our strength, but symptoms of our terror. We launch rockets, write books, hold funerals, paint ceilings, donate to causes, start wars, create religions, not because we are noble, but because we are scared. Underneath every philosophy is a coffin. Behind every prayer, a trembling animal. Beneath every monument, a pile of bones. This is what Becker called the worm at the core, a phrase he borrowed from William James. The idea that death is not the enemy at the gates, but the rot within. The irony of man's condition is that the deepest need is to be free of the anxiety of death and annihilation. But it is life itself which awakens it, and so we must shrink from being.